And let me just switch that out. And it's good to have Anthony back.
Yeah,
So, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, 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 good. So we're talking about today. We're talking about how do you know what if there's two parts to just figuring out if you can do an ADU, and the first one is there's feasibility and there's finance. Those are the two things that cost no money to get started on, and they're going to set your whole plan in place. We've talked a lot about financing today. But we're going to talk about feasibility. How do you know what you can build on your property? So let's talk about this first. By state law, you can build up to 4 units on the property, and HCD and state law has clarified this. You can build a detached ADU. Realistically, maximum size is 800 square feet unless you have a really big front house. There are setback different distances between the main house and the detached ADU. And those are kind of local, but generally speaking, they're between 4 and 8 feet, usually closer to 8 feet, because they've got to have fire separation. Um, the second thing is you can have an internal conversion. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So you can wall up part of your house, like that formal living room and dining room. And then you can have a junior ADU, which is 500 square feet. So that's how they get up to 4 units. So that's number one. The number one question, it's interesting, most of the ADUs we see are the conversion of the detached garages. And most people think, oh, I'll just go in and clean it out or whatever. Here's the trick with the detached garages. Most of them, unless if they were built before 1990, 2000, and they were built very flimsily. And so the concrete housing standard on the concrete, the foundations is you've got to be 6 inches deep with reinforced rebar. And on the corners, you've got to have 1 foot footings, right? And what most garages floors, I mean, they're all cracked up because
Oh
they've
yeah.
got no rebar. They're 4 inches. So if you even take your toe and dig down a little bit or a little shovel, you can see how deep it is. Most of those get replaced for that reason because you've either got to prop it up with extra underneath with extra concrete, or you can just demo it and just build what you want.
Mhm.
And also the roofs and the roof trussing are usually, if they're detached, they're usually not nearly as strong as the attached roofs, and they're not maintained often. So usually you've got to have that totally, a trussing totally rebuilt. The only time where you would keep part of that dwelling and is if it's on the property line. So if you have existing structures that are closer than 4 feet to the property line are grandfathered in, so you don't have to move them, but you got to keep up one of the walls. If you're knocking it down, you have to be at least 4 feet in from the property line. So that gives you a sense of feasibility of what you can do. If you don't have room in the backyard, your front setbacks are 15 feet from the front property line. Now, if you have a sidewalk in front of the front property line, that edge of the sidewalk is your property line. It's not all the way to the curb. So that's something to think about as well. And you can go down to the local permit office and just ask them. It's literally, they call it the permit counter because it's literally like a counter. And you walk up and there's somebody there. And a lot of times they have a TV in the back and they'll pull up your property and say, you say, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that. You want to ask them questions that aren't yes or no questions. You want to ask them open-ended questions like, what could I build,
Mhm.
right? Um, if you were me, what would you build? Tell them what your goals are. And if it's their idea, tell them they're brilliant and then get their card. So you have a contact person to work with, right?
You have them on your side now.
It's kind of like what we do with underwriters, like, here's your Christmas present. One of the best permit queens in permit runners in San Diego. She jokes that she puts on her highest heels or her shortest skirts and bakes fresh brownies and brings them down to the permit office.
My goodness. Hey, if it gets the job done.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, Anthony, you live in North Park, and the joke is that you can walk down an alley and just knock on the back door of the structures and see who's there,
Pretty much.
permitted or not. So that's how you at least do the initial feasibility. And at that point, you get a sense of what you can build, but your contractor will do that for you too. And don't underestimate the possibilities of going 2 stories, because that will save your yard space and give you more space to go into. So
Mhm. And
yeah.
it's always good to go in and ask those questions as well, because you want to be able to set yourself up for success. You don't want to be trying to chase back into like, okay, we've laid this out, but oh, we can't do that. So it is asking the right types of questions and making sure that you know that everybody's on the same page.
Totally, totally. So that's pretty exciting. I just got off the phone with, interestingly, a big builder. They were asking me what are the new ADU rules, and we just talked about flex space and the internal conversions. They're looking at building big new houses that have the ability to convert internally with a simple walling up of hallways. So, like, you could buy a like 5 or 6 bedroom house, and they're selling it as, hey, you can have the big house, or we can sell it to you as like a triplex or a house with ADUs and internal conversions, which, by the way, you could then rent out or sell off. I thought that was very interesting because that also applies to the average homeowner. Like, if you add on to your house, with a plan that you have the optionality to wall it off and sell it or rent it out when you want
Mhm.
to, like the ages and stages of lives. Like, if you've got a big house and the kids move out, could you wall off the living room, or wall off the other master bedroom if you've got a double master bedroom house, and rent it out, right, until the kids come home.
And you
Yeah.
can actually sell that off if it is just being separated by one wall. It's not its actual separate structure.
Yeah, good question. AB 1090, 1033 is the key word here, and that is the state law, but local municipalities have to adopt. So I was just at the San Diego County Planning Commission, and they are recommending adopting AB 1033, which would allow you to condotize all the units on the property and sell them off. And condos, I'm very excited about because we haven't built condos, particularly in California, in years. And condos are such a critical stepping up and and downsizing, type of opportunity. So, especially for first-time home buyers.
I would say never frown on looking at condo options because you never know what that could allow you to get into as a first-time home buyer. And then once you potentially graduate from that home, holding on to it and using it as a rental property and having that income.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And usually, like, when you buy it, it goes up in value every year. What,
mhm.
in San Diego here, 20, $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
Plus you're paying down the loan, so you're building equity, which is like a forced savings account.
Well, last time I checked, San Diego County, they have one of the highest property value increases year over year between 4 and 6%. So if
Yeah,
that's still on track, it's it's great.
yeah, because we have no housing. So,
It's a double-edged sword on that.
yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So, I got off. The other thing we did this week was I got off the phone with California YIMBY and some of the uh, political groups in Sacramento, and they've got a really exciting agenda this year for things like condo defect reform that would allow the big builders to condotize. But also think about this, Anthony, 'cause again, living in North Park, all those apartments, they could condotize those units and sell off all of those apartments. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be. I mean, if they were able to get the funding and be able to do that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, at the county there was a really cool young couple and they're investors and they build apartment buildings, but they had added ADUs and they came to support it because they want to sell off the ADUs.
Yeah.
And condo defect reform would allow them to sell off the apartment units as well,
Yeah.
you know. So that was kind of good news for
Great.
first-time home buyers.
Seriously, and it creates those opportunities. Yep.
Hmm. You own your own house, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Have you guys ever thought about adding units back there?
We don't have the space to, unfortunately, in our backyard. We've kind of turned it into this tropical paradise in a sense where there's no room to build an ADU on at least the backyard area. We'd have to either possibly do a garage conversion or maybe add a second story to the garage.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, so our homes were built in the late probably 1950s or so. I think ours was built in like 58.
Oof.
And ours, we kept in the original actual, layout because we love that mid-century modern look to it. But we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of homes in our community that have either expanded them, they've added on a second story to them. So it's really interesting seeing how just that really simple blueprint that was originally created, how people are building on that. And we're seeing a lot of multi-generational, families moving into these homes as well, or they're adding on to it for either moms and dads to move in or kids to move in with them and having their separate spaces. So kind of the sky's the limits on, what's available or at least the design options that we're seeing in our community.
What construction challenges? Sometimes the 1950s homes were built really well, but a lot of times they weren't. What challenges do you see in those types of houses?
Knock on wood, ours has actually been quite good so far.
Good.
We haven't really had those issues. The one thing that I would say that has been the biggest issue, drainage. And that's kind of a very
Yeah.
surprise thing. But really, so our house is kind of tiered in how the backyard is done. And we have a pool back there, but drainage wasn't really a priority.
Hmm.
And so that's been something that we're going to have to really look into in the future of seeing, if we're going to have to add an additional drainage or really kind of dig up the backyard and put that in there. But if you look around everywhere, and even just, we have the friends that we have in our neighborhood and we've seen their homes, they might have one drain in the backyard.
Wow.
And it definitely does create some issues.
I've had
Fortunately, we are on a hill, so everything kind of moves down, but at the same time, though, it's still,
I've had that happen too. I had to personally dig a French
yeah.
drain. It was horrible. I did end up going to Home Depot and renting a trencher, but like I never want to do that again. It was a
So it's
lot
not
of
so
hard
fun
work.
at all.
Oh my gosh.
That is definitely getting your hands dirty.
Oh gosh. I will say one of the things I see in a lot of the older homes that while you're, doing the ADU, it's worth, I know it sounds horrible, but drains, small drain pipes. If those, yes, they're a pain in the butt to fully replace, but I figure you're probably saving money in the end on the plumber coming
Mhm.
every, 6 months or whatever, backing up and clogs and all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing how small the 1950s piping was at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah,
So,
ours is fortunately built. It's not on a slab. It actually has a crawl space underneath it. So we have had
mhm,
to go through and replace all the piping underneath it. And that was fortunately a relatively easy job because it was very easily accessible.
good.
So that's the plus on that one there. But one of the other things too that I've also found, ours, like I said, is still in its original blueprint, the layout of it, but they made the homes really easy to modify in regards to moving things around. So like we've already
Oh,
gone through and we've moved, like the furnace up into the attic space. We took out the hot water heater that was in a hallway closet. We put that to a tankless out in the garage, and really kind of opened all that space up. So when we do a full renovation on the bathroom, we literally have almost double the size of what we could utilize in space wise because now it's just all empty.
wow.
So they made it really easy that if you wanted potentially do those modifications, it's totally easily done.
Yeah, and if you're building an ADU and you got the guys on site, you might as well knock it out. I mean, in terms
Mhm.
of our financing, a $10,000 project costs about $60 a month, so that could very much be worth it, and your renter's paying for it.
Absolutely. Well, especially here in San Diego County and what we're able to attain for rent. So absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. We've had a lot of calls on rural properties. I think you have too. What are you seeing out there?
I'm seeing people that really just want to get out of the middle of the city. They want that peace and quiet. They want to be able to really put their touch on what they're building and have the space around them as well. Also, it gives them the opportunity to grow too. So if they're going out and they're buying a couple of acres, some people we've seen with 2 acres, 3 acres, and some people we've seen that have acquired on like 30 acres.
Hmm.
And by at least just getting that initial unit placed onto it, and then what their future vision is going to be, it allows them that opportunity because they have the space to do so, something that they wouldn't necessarily be allowed to do here in a much more urban type of area.
Hmm.
And the nice thing about San Diego too, specifically, is that because of how our city is, you literally can be from coast to inland to mountain to desert in all of an hour and a half, sometimes
Hmm.
shorter than that. And
Hmm.
so it still gives you the accessibility to a big city, but you're able to move out to some of the more rural areas, let's say like Ramona, Julian, and be able to find those larger pieces of land and put your own specific touch on it.
And
And
there's
we are
so
seeing
much,
more.
the land is so much cheaper. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It really
Uh,
is.
well, good, good. I just had a call from a guy in Tennessee who's in a suburb of Nashville,
Mm.
and he's bought a piece of land for $10,000. Like, that's awesome.
It's
You know,
amazing.
his total cost for a home in the burbs of, Nashville will be like 250,000 max. So that's a monthly payment of, like 1,500.
Mhm.
Nothing,
Yeah.
for the whole shebang. And he's building the house of his dreams, so
Yeah.
it's new, no maintenance. Man, that's nice.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, we can't imagine it here in California. That's
Yeah.
just so cheap. So.
Yeah, I think that cost the 250,000 would be the cost potentially of the land.
Mm-hmm. Totally, totally. Well, cool. So that's what we're seeing today. Anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of at this time. It's really, if you, well, I will say this for people that are interested or they're maybe just taking their first steps and looking into like, what can I possibly do? I like to use the term, you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
And so by just reaching out to somebody like myself, reaching out to somebody like Meredith and asking these types of questions, hey, what are my opportunities? What are the possibilities that I can possibly pursue in whether it's building your first home, whether it's, keeping your existing property and buying something new, reach out to us and we can guide you through it and
Yeah,
really
that's
answer those big questions.
That's so true. And we're working over Christmas. So I'll put our address to book a call. We keep our calendars open so you can just pick a time. It's free and just talk through the financing numbers and what can be built on your property. We're on calendly.com/ADU loans. And you can pick a call anytime. And yeah, at least I'll be working over the holidays because that's when people are home and taking care of business.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, cool. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's all for this week. And call us.